Overtime!
Welcome back to Overtime Arcade. I'm Charlie, and something we don't really do a lot of on this channel is gameplay videos. Obviously, our focus is repair and restoration video series where I show you how I take these classic machines and bring them back to their original glory, but obviously I love playing these games too. I just don't show enough of it on this channel. So, it being this time of year, I thought we could have some fun playing Castlevania on the PlayChoice-10 as sort of a Halloween special. I absolutely love Castlevania. It's got to easily be one of my favorite console video game series of all time, and I really enjoy playing it on my PlayChoice-10, which is really just a coin-op version of the NES. Last year we had some fun with a Halloween special where I played the Munsters Pinball. Obviously a great theme for Halloween. The Munsters is a classic show. This is obviously a much more modern Stern pinball machine with a LCD screen in the back glass. It's got some absolutely phenomenal artwork. I think this game is a ton of fun. It's really, really beginner friendly for people that aren't, professional pinball players. My kids love playing it. It was the first pinball machine that I ever got. I got it new in box and I love it. And we had a ton of fun playing that last year. And I've actually got another game that's got a bit of a horror theme, which is Tempest, believe it or not. So really the theme behind Tempest is based on a nightmare that creator Dave Thurr had about monsters crawling out of a hole in the ground. And that's really what the gameplay of Tempest is all about. You're sort of on the perimeter of this tube, and monsters are coming up at you, and you're trying to destroy them. So technically, if it's based on a nightmare involving monsters, that makes Tempest a horror game, and Tempest is definitely one of my favorite video games. But I think for today, I want to play some Castlevania, so why don't we get the tripod set up for that? All right, Castlevania on the Nintendo PlayChoice-10 arcade machine. And like I mentioned, the PlayChoice-10 is really just a coin-op version of the Nintendo Entertainment System. So if you've seen the original Castlevania on NES, a lot of this is going to be super, super familiar to you. It's really just another way to play Castlevania. And with the PlayChoice-10, it is an arcade machine, but instead of your quarters buying lives, it's really buying time. So we drop some coins into the machine, we coin it up, and we buy time. So, I've got 10 different games loaded into it. Castlevania is one of them, and we'll select it and start a game. And just from the beginning, just this sort of opening kind of cinematic where you hear the sound, that you're in for a really special treat. It drops you off here, on the outskirts of the castle, and, really, really basic here. I think this is kind of from a game design perspective, just to teach the player, the mechanics. You walk around back and forth, you can jump, you crack your whip, and, hit lamps and stuff to get power-ups, right? And then we're here kind of in this, I don't know what you would call this big ballroom or big atrium inside of Dracula's castle. Really basic, ghouls or whatever these are, characters here. I don't think anyone ever typically has any trouble, at least at this beginning part. So we're going around, we're whipping some bad guys, we're collecting hearts. Obviously, hearts are really our ammunition in this game. We've already got a sub-weapon, which is kind of the useless throwing knife. I see I've got the watch there, the pocket watch that stops time for us. We've got a new character here, those cats or dogs or whatever. They're cats, panthers. Those can trip you up sometimes, but not too bad here. Grab that holy water, which is in my opinion, a much more useful sub-weapon than the throwing dagger. Some little random RNG there gave us a crucifix that instantly wipes out all characters on the screen, which really doesn't show up all that much. It always comes here on this last candle, which is sort of useless. But yeah, so the RNG gods are playing in our favor here. On to the next screen, we got some bats to contend with, and just making our way through. So yeah, the hearts are again our. I don't like that stopwatch. It just freezes enemies for a second. We got our first little bit of wall meat there, which again, this is where that meme started. Looking for wall chicken. trying to find that as much as possible. You know, this is a Nintendo hard game, so any opportunity to refill our health bar will be much appreciated. We have these, I think they're mermen, right? I probably should have looked at the instructions before we started playing here. I'll probably get a lot of these enemy names wrong. Again, that stopwatch it wants you to have, and I would much rather have this holy water. Yeah, and again, our hearts are ammunition for our sub-weapons. There really isn't much of an economy in certainly not the initial Castlevania, where, you know, and I feel like there's some kind of secret here that I'm missing. Is there like a warp zone or something, shortcut? I feel like I'm missing something. If you remember what's going on here with that block that I just knocked out, please remind me in a comment down below. I accidentally threw some holy water there. You know, it's playing with a four-way joystick is a little bit different than obviously the control pad, the D-pad on the NES controller. We got bumped by our bat enemy there to be our first hit. Now we've got our third crucifix of all time. You know, I always find those that you know, screen, or that power up that clears the screen of enemies, that crucifix always comes in at a time where it's completely worthless. You know, like I've been trying to say a couple times here, our hearts are our ammunition for our sub-weapons. We just got that, I don't know if that's like a jug of oil or something that makes us temporarily invincible. I've never found that to be particularly useful. Those sort of, you know, relatively powerful power-ups like the crucifix and the invincibility oil, if that's what it is, never really seem to, you know, come into play when you need them, and they don't last very long. We've got our throwing axe here, which is another pretty powerful weapon. I think there's a way, if you time it right here, to basically stun lock this bat boss with the throwing axe. I'm kind of doing a little bit here where you can time it just right, so you're essentially stun locking it where it can't move and can't hurt you, and you make very quick work of it. There's actually a couple bosses in this game that are like that, whether it's with the holy water or with a basically the boomerang cross. Again, I don't exactly know what some of these names are, but yeah, that's the first level. It's technically stage 3. If you see in the upper right hand corner, I think it might be every kind of room that you scroll into is a different stage, and every couple of stages you get a boss. So there's our boomerang cross right there. That's a relatively good weapon. Kind of chugging along here, trying to load up on hearts. And you'll see me whipping the walls all the time, looking for wall chicken, even when I don't need it. So this sort of soldier here, armored soldier, you know, we threw our throwing cross at it to knock it out. Same thing with that bat that was hanging up. Testing for wall chicken just there. Yeah, you know, it's been a little while since I've played the original Castlevania, so I'm sure I've forgotten a lot of the secrets, and I'm sure those of you who are pros or, you know, speedrunners of Castlevania will likely be cringing when you see me missing things that I shouldn't be missing. But yeah, and with that boomerang, I don't know if it does anything, but I always feel like I need to jump up and catch it. Again, I don't think it, you know, restores your ammunition, your hearts, or anything like that, but I feel like it's always a good idea to catch a boomerang that you throw. That little tile that I just got there with Roman numeral 2, I think does that make my attack more powerful, or does it make me more resistant to enemy attacks, like reduce the damage I take when I get hit? I can't exactly remember. But yeah, now we are scrolling into, that should be now stage 5, yep. And yeah, so a little bit strange there how the stages are delineated. We've got our Medusa heads coming in, you know, notorious Castlevania enemy that kind of has this, you know, I don't know, would that be a sinusoidal wave pattern, sort of, you know, rocking back and forth in, and you got to get the timing right so you don't get hit, and then you can kind of get juggled by them sometimes. And oh, there we go. Right on cue, Medusa head knocks me off the screen to my death, and we've lost our first life. One of the things that's, you know, maybe a little bit forgiving about this game is, as I'm again getting turned into mincemeat by the Medusa heads, is you have unlimited continues with the original Castlevania. So even if you're dying, you know, you might be put in a weird position where there's a sub weapon that you need that you can't exactly get, but you know, the only time you'll ever really see a game over is when you decide not to play. And I don't know if you can tell or not. Oh, there I go. I don't know if you've been able to tell or not. I'm actually recording a voiceover so you can hear me talk while playing, because, you know, especially with a game like Castlevania, I want to concentrate. Again, right there I go, I get hit again by a Medusa head. I want to concentrate while I'm playing, and I wouldn't be able to have nearly as interesting a talk track if I was trying to do the voiceover and play the game at the same time. So apologies if the audio is a little bit weird, but hopefully everything's coming through relatively clearly. So let's try to do our best here to avoid... fell again to our death. This time it was our fault. Bad platform jumping, not the Medusa head. And here, you know, every time you die, you lose all of your power-ups. You know, your whip power-up, you lose all of your hearts, you lose your sub-weapon, any of those, I know what you call those, the Roman numeral tiles. You lose everything, right? Just like Konami, just like Gradius, right? When you die, you lose all your power-ups. I always feel like the whip power-ups are essentially pointless because, you know, you get those whip power-ups back pretty quickly, right? Again, the RNG is set so, you know, if you have no whip power-ups, it's a very high probability that, you know, the candles that you whip or the lamps that you whip are going to have that whip power-up. So it's almost like, why bother taking that away from you? Why bother even making that a thing in the game, right? Not just give you a fully powered up, you know, whip all the time. Especially the only time it's really going to hurt you is if you lose it right before a boss and there isn't a chance for you to power your whip back up before facing that boss again. So here we go. You know, a lot of these sort of like obvious dead ends, you know, I feel like a lot of them have, you know, some sort of, you know, hidden treasures or something. So you'll often see me trying to whip around and look for it. I know there's some things where if you stand in a certain spot or press down or something up, you got the terrible stopwatch power up. You know, you can trigger like, you know, bonus treasure or one-ups or whatever to appear, and I think I remember where some of them are, but I'm sure I'm missing a lot of them. And there we go, the Medusa head knocks us down, but we didn't fall to our death, fortunately. And again, if I was playing, I would be, you know, being quiet so that I could concentrate, but that's not a problem here, obviously. I'm making all of these mistakes even in complete silence. Again, miss a jump there, but yeah, I was really looking forward to this, playing Castlevania here. Like I said, I love this game. I love, you know, basically all of the original side-scrolling games in this series, and all of the Symphony of the Night-based sort of Metroidvania-style games. Just absolutely love them. Always have, always will. You know, from when I was, you know, first playing the NES. I actually got Castlevania 2 first. I got that the same Christmas that I got my NES, so that would have been what? Christmas, you know, 1988 going into 1989, I think. I had a babysitter at the time that, you know, knew that we had just gotten an NES and Castlevania 2, and they gave us their copy of the issue 2 of Nintendo Power with, you know, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest on the cover, the sort of severed head of Dracula that kind of freaked some parents out way back when. But that kind of made, you know, Castlevania 2 a lot easier to play, right? Like the Nintendo Power kind of, you know, helps you out with all the secrets. Otherwise, without any kind of guide for Castlevania 2, you know, almost unplayable. Certainly very difficult to understand all of the cryptic hints to complete it. But with the Nintendo Power, you know, that makes Simon's Quest a much more enjoyable game. And it's probably one of the reasons why I have such an affinity for Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest is there really was never a time where I didn't have, you know, that guide from Nintendo Power to kind of help you through it. So, you know, I didn't kind of experience the frustration that a lot of first-time players of Simon's Quest had when they didn't have that guide at their fingertips. All right, we're back on track here, making progress. We're into stage 6. You see me, you know, futilely looking for wall chicken or you know, hidden treasures over there. We've lost about half of our health bar. Again, we've got another crucifix to clear the screen of enemies, but not really helping us much. Again, I've lost about half of my health bar here, so I'm looking for something to power me up before I face this boss right here, which is not a particularly hard one, but yeah. Is this, what is this? Is this Medusa's head coming alive? Yeah. So here's the big Medusa head, and, you know, this is actually a point where the stopwatch is kind of useful. You know, you can freeze that boss in its track and just sort of, you know, whip it till kingdom come and make quick work of it. So I guess that stopwatch power-up isn't completely useless. So yeah, that's our second boss, I think, and we're done with stage 6, on to stage 7. And yeah, I've been looking forward to this a bit. I love playing Castlevania. I don't get to do it enough. You know, I've actually been really busy at work at my day job. Lots of traveling lately. I'm actually doing this voiceover from a hotel just outside New York City. I'm here on a business trip. I'll be home before I release this video, but I kind of recorded the gameplay footage really quickly the night before I had to leave town. I figured I could do this voiceover after the fact from the hotel room. So hopefully the acoustics are okay. I've got my nice microphone that I use for the Coin Jam podcast, and I'm sort of facing the window shades of the big window in the hotel room. So hopefully the acoustics are okay. I'm sure Dell from Dell's Arcade will, provide me some great technical feedback on what I could have done differently to make it better. But yeah, so making progress here. Now we've got these ravens that kind of dive bomb you. We've got these skeletons that'll throw bones at you. We've got some platforming here that becomes a little tricky with these enemies, but so far we're doing okay. I'm trying to hit as many of these candles as possible to get whatever power-ups might be available. And that was really really lucky there that I didn't, fall to my death. I kind of got blocked on my fall by that upper block. And where I landed, I think triggered a hidden treasure to appear. Oh, and there goes our throwing axe. That probably could have come in handy, but I think I'm okay with the holy water sub-weapon right now. And that's the end of stage 7, the beginning of stage 8. Yeah. But like I said, making good progress. Make sure you watch all the way to the end, because there's something cool that I think you might enjoy that I want to do, a little bonus surprise at the end. So we're dodging these Medusa heads, doing okay. Let's see, we got any wall chicken? Nope. Yeah, I'll do something cool at the end after we're done with the gameplay that you might enjoy. So make sure you stick around for that, or at least at a minimum, once you get tired of watching, fast forward to the end to see what I'm talking about. Again, avoiding that stopwatch. We've got the holy water here. That should be good. I often sometimes these dragon heads or dinosaur heads, whatever they are, that spit fireballs kind of mess me up a little bit. But see what I did there is I got that raven to despawn. I don't know if I'll be able to do it again here. No. I don't think you can get these, again, what are they? Dragon heads, the fireball, fire breathers to despawn, but that's a little bit of a trick you can do sometimes. Grab that Roman numeral 2 power tile. Again, I can't remember if that increases my attack or increases my defense. All right, that's stage 8 for you. We're on to stage 9. In preparation for playing this, I was recently watching my buddy Brandon, also known as Advance13 on the Claw forums. He recently started a Twitch channel called Outworld Arcade. I think it's Deckard995. You can find it. And he's been doing live streams on Twitch every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. I've been watching that a lot. I like having that on in the background while I'm working on stuff in the garage, and he's a lot of fun, sort of, talking trash in the live chat for the Twitch stream. But he's been playing for the whole month of, he plays different games every time on his channel. Well, some he likes to play a lot, but he tries to mix it up quite a bit. He's been playing lots of spooky themed games for the month of October leading up to Halloween, and he was recently playing Castlevania on the NES, so that was a lot of fun watching him. It was actually last week I was on oh man, there we go. Down to our last life on our first continue here. And look at that. The first thing that we get is that power-up tile. We don't have our whip upgrades yet, but we've got this power tile. And for whatever reason, it's not showing up there on the next to my hearts counter, and I'm not exactly sure why. Here we go. Fireball. Can we outrun it? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he's been playing Castlevania. He was playing it last week. I was actually, last week I was in Florida, or I was first in New York and then in Florida on a business trip. And on my way home from Florida was the last part of my trip. Is that Wednesday? Yeah. And I was watching it in the terminal, and he had gotten to a certain point and was sort of stuck as these dragon heads tear me up again. he had gotten stuck, and you know, obviously I had to stop watching when my plane took off, and then when we landed, I turned the stream back on my phone. He was still stuck on the same spot, so you know, 2 hours or whatever. So definitely felt his frustration a little bit. Castlevania is definitely one of those NES hard games, but you know, forgiving in the sense that it gives you these unlimited continues, so you can try again. And actually, I had brought my Nintendo Switch with me on that trip. I didn't bring it this time, did I? No. And I was, you know, again, I had been thinking about playing Castlevania for the Halloween, you know, special gameplay video here. So I brought up, and here we are coming up to a boss here, but it doesn't look well. I've got a bad sub weapon, and yeah, terrible. Only one part of my life yet. Oh, there we go. Found a little bit of wall chicken to help us out. I don't think I can pre-attack these sort of twin mummies here. I'm not sure I necessarily have a good strategy. Yep, they're gonna rip me apart. I got no way to get past them. I sort of got stunned past them, but nope, dead. Okay, so now we're on our first continue, which puts us back at stage 7. So sort of the, you know, right after the previous boss that we defeated. So we'll kind of be retracing our steps here a little bit. But anyway, I brought my Switch with me on that trip, and I had the Konami Castlevania collection. I actually have the really cool special edition, collector's edition from Limited Run Games, the hard copy. Brought that with me, loaded in my Switch, and you know, I was playing Castlevania for the NES, the original version, on my Switch during the flight. So you know, I made it this far, no problem. I did get to a point up in a bit where I got stuck a little bit, but I was able to get past it. Didn't finish the game on the flight, but I think I've got a good sense for a lot of it, and obviously watching Brandon's live stream on Twitch helped out a bit. So I should kind of know what I'm doing for the most part, but again, I don't remember all the secrets. I don't remember all of the strategies, or the strats as the kids call them, for the bosses. And so definitely don't take this as a gameplay tutorial. Definitely don't take this as any kind of, you know, speed run kind of thing. I know there's people out there that can finish this game in, you know, just 18 minutes, and I think we've basically been playing for 18 minutes already, and we're not even halfway through the game. So you know, this is basically, you know, really definitely. Oh, and I was able to trigger that hidden treasure again. Look at me. Definitely take this as a complete amateur playing gameplay of Castlevania. So nothing special. I'm surprised you're even watching this. Maybe you just find me generally entertaining, which I can't explain or understand. So, all right, back to stage 8. Again, we got wasted by the twin mummy bosses last time. I've got holy water, which should be an okay weapon for them. You know, we will have the opportunity to get that wall chicken to get our health back up right as we face those bosses, but don't really want to get hurt more. And there we go. Not good, Charlie, not good. Don't let those Medusa heads touch you. Or what are they called? Gorgons or something like that. Okay, so let's see if we can avoid getting hit and get back to that wall chicken. Don't grab that. Maybe that's not a terrible sub-weapon for these bosses, but again, I don't remember. Like, it's almost like Mega Man, right? Like, there's an ideal weapon that you want to have for each boss in Castlevania, I feel like. I remember some of them, and I think like for, I don't know. I do like the holy water though, so maybe that's one to hold on to. Try to knock out the, and again, another crucifix. Something's going on with the random number generator. Maybe that's just how it is on the PlayChoice-10. Maybe it's slightly different. You know, a lot of the PlayChoice-10 ROMs were just, you know, exact copies of what was on the NES. But there are some differences with others, so maybe that's one they did for the PlayChoice-10. You know, it's such a weird system, the PlayChoice-10 for the arcade. You know, a lot of, you know, real purist arcade collectors don't really have a high opinion of it. You know, obviously it was a little bit later. It was after the golden era, so I think the PlayChoice-10 would have come out in 85 or so. So this was, you know, Nintendo obviously had their pre-Donkey Kong era of arcade machines like Sheriff and Radar Scope and Hellfire and that sort of thing. And then obviously it had a huge smash hit with Donkey Kong and everything that came in its wake, Junior and Popeye and Mario Bros. And that sort of thing. And then they had the Versus system, which was, very, the hardware for the Versus system was very similar to the Famicom or the NES hardware. Oh my gosh, here we go. Maybe I should just, die there, and instead of getting sent back to the beginning of this, to the last boss, we'll just sort of go back to this checkpoint at the beginning of stage 9. And we're getting hit right away. But yeah, so the Versus system arcade machine, based on the Famicom or NES hardware, but it was, 2 games per board. You could have up to 2 games, and they had different versions of the hardware, the cabinet, dedicated and conversions of with a single monitor, some with a dual side-by-side monitor that you could have 2 games going at once, or 1 4-player game. And obviously they had the Red Tent, which was like the cocktail version. There we go, losing another life. Cocktail version of the 2-sided, two monitor setup. And that was great. I'd love to have a Versus cabinet one day. Really, any of the dedicated ones would be fantastic. The Red Tent would be a trick to kind of figure out where exactly to put it. It being sort of a kind of an unusual cocktail. It's like a cocktail sit down, but there's no like, you can't use it as a table. Like I have the Donkey Kong Jr. cocktail in my office / main arcade lineup at home, and it works great as like an extension of my desk, my office desk when I work from home. But, the Red Tent is almost a little bit like a candy cab in that it's a sit down, but it doesn't really serve any function as a table because it's not a flat top. But anyway, I wouldn't mind having a Red Tent, obviously. And the Versus dual system upright is the big giant, basically looks like 2 cabinets, Siamese twins together. Now that one would probably have to stay, in the garage just from a space consideration. But I think that ideally I'd love to get a dedicated Versus unit system. That would probably be the way to go. And I'd love to get Ice Climber. I know Ice Climber is a very rare board. Anyway, okay, so we're back to the boss here, and the only sub-weapon we were able to get was the throwing knife, which is not great. But we'll get our wall chicken to get most of our health back, and let's see if we can take out these mummies. And then after the Versus system, here we go. Okay, we dodged that. Kind of lucky. We're sort of neck and neck on health here with the bosses. Maybe we can do something. Let's throw some weapons at them. Oop. That was lucky. We were able to deflect their projectile. I think we might do it. One more. Oh, almost. Oh, there we go. Okay. We did it. We're not stuck. We'll be moving on. Okay. And this isn't even where I got stuck, initially on my flight playing this on my Switch. But yeah, so then after the Versus system, the PlayChoice-10 came out, and really just based on the NES hardware. And rather than only having 2 games like the Versus system, you had swappable cartridges, different than an NES cartridge, but kind of like a cartridge just the same, or a game card, to put up to 10 games on a single motherboard. And there's a menu system where you can pick, from which of the 10 games you want to play. This is the beginning of where I got stuck. It was the next boss that I kept getting stuck on. So I got back to this stage over and over and over again, playing on my Switch on that flight. But yeah, and so the PlayChoice-10 was kind of a way for Nintendo and its licensees, its third-party developers to try out new games for the NES and have a way for them to release them to market before putting them on the NES, either as a way to generate interest. And don't fall for this trap here. Those skulls there, you can't sit on them, you can't stand on them, so don't jump onto that thinking it's a platform. Yeah, things are getting a little bit intense here with the combat. But yeah, so there were some games that were released on the PlayChoice-10, ahead of their NES release. Most famously, Super Mario Bros. 3 was released first on the PlayChoice-10. So, before you could buy it and play it on the NES, you could find it potentially at an arcade on a PlayChoice-10 and try, Mario 3 for just 25 cents. And that was another thing with the PlayChoice-10, being in the arcade. Most arcade games were designed for. They wanted to get the operators wanted to get another quarter from you every, minute and a half, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. And for NES games, you know, they weren't necessarily that hard, you know, like classic golden era arcade games were designed to be tough, so that you would, you know, have to put in a new quarter every couple of minutes, right? But, you know, with NES games, maybe you practiced at home and you were familiar with these games, and an operator didn't, and I hate these things here, I always thought of them as hunchbacks, but I think they're technically called Igors. I did a pretty good job there with the hawks or eagles or whatever that kind of, you know, bomb them on you. I did pretty good there. And then this sort of, you know, articulating dragon head always kind of, you know, gives me grief too. There we go. We got our little power up. And we've got some more of those dragon heads. And this, if you remember, this is the part that you see in the attract mode at the beginning of the, oh, I don't want that. I don't think I want that. This little sort of, you know, hallway sequences from the attract mode of the game, so it should be familiar to lots of folks. There we go, that's not so bad. There we go. Oh, look at that, Roman numeral 3. Again, I don't really know what that power-up does. But yeah, so with the PlayChoice-10, right, like they couldn't just let you, you know, grab a quarter, because like there's plenty of people that can, you know, for example, now beat Mario 3 without, you know, ever seeing a game over, right? And, you know, operators don't want that. They don't want you to buy, you know, 30 minutes of playtime for just 25 cents. So with the PlayChoice-10, it's actually got a timer-based mechanism. So rather than buying lives with your quarter, you're buying time, right? And the operator could control how much or how little time you were getting, and to, you know, make sure that they were still getting their money's worth. But at the same time, that would allow you to potentially try multiple games on a single quarter if you didn't like the first one that you got. All right, here we go. Here's Frankenstein's monster. I don't know what they officially call it in this game. He's got a little Igor hanging on his back. I'm trying to stun lock him with holy water, and look at that. On my first try, because of all the practice that I did on my Switch, on the Konami Castlevania Classic Collection or whatever, during my flight, perfect. Got past Frankenstein's monster, or whatever they call it in this game, on my first pass. And that is the end of stage 12, and now we're kind of in uncharted territory. I've obviously beaten this game multiple times, both with and without Game Genie. You know, back in the day, Game Genie definitely helped out. But I have not seen stage 13, and it's been a while, folks. So now you're watching me play Castlevania on levels that I have not practiced recently. So we'll see how we do from here. But yeah, stage 13, you know, things are starting to get progressively more difficult here. I don't really mind my loadout, right? I've got that Roman numeral 3 power-up, whatever it does. I've got holy water. I've got full health. Yeah, I think we're in relatively good shape. But yeah, the game definitely gets progressively more difficult, so I'm sure we'll get wiped out in no time. We'll either fall to our death or something. So let's keep going, see what we got. So now we got multiple skeletons throwing bones at us, and I just accidentally got our stopwatch power up, and I lose my holy water. Let's see if we can take out this guy without taking damage. Nope, apparently not. So yeah, maybe it must be. Do I lose that power up? Did I lose my Roman numeral 3 power-up when I got hit? I don't understand this game. A lot of these power-ups just don't make sense to me. And you'll see me increasingly try to despawn the enemies off the screen. You know, a lot of these enemies where if you sort of let them spawn onto the screen and then back away so that they become off screen, they'll just disappear and not reappear. That doesn't always work, but it sometimes does. I know there's a little secret here. If you keep sort of like walking up against this wall, you can make a one-up up here. As far as I know, is that the only one-up in this game? I think you're able to earn extra lives every so many points. I'm not sure what it is. There's another little secret there. I'm sure there's a ton that I'm forgetting. Okay, now these red skeletons, these are kind of like the, I think of them as like the dry bones in Mario, where you can't really kill them with the weapons that you have. You can just kind of, you know, knock them down and wait for them to reappear. I don't know, did Miyamoto steal the idea for dry bones from these red skeletons in Castlevania? There we go, oh, look at that. Some very, very much needed wall chicken that disappeared because I wasn't able to jump to it in time because, you know, the movement in Castlevania is a bit stiff. Simon Belmont, our protagonist here, is not the most nimble of video game characters. And now we have these super armored knights that throw, their own boomerang axes at you. I was able to get that invincibility oil for a brief period of time, just enough to get that, get that knight to kind of spawn off the screen. And there we go. Look, okay, so everything is frozen now, and it's because I've run out of time, right? I put 4 quarters in, and I do have this set to not to free play. There is free play. I have it set to quarter drop, so and like the way I had the sort of credit system set up, 4 quarters bought me 2,400 time units, and I don't think it's quite like a perfect 1-for-1 for seconds. I think we've maybe been playing for less than 2,400 seconds here. I'm not entirely sure, but we ran out of that time. So you have this grace period of like, I don't know, 30 seconds or so, where the upper screen, which I don't have the camera pointed to, because obviously it would make it a sort of a top over top, would minimize the gameplay screen. That top screen gives you instructions and hints and that sort of stuff for the game, and it has the timer. So that timer count. Oop, there we go. I was stuck on the stairs trying to avoid the throwing axe, and I got knocked out by the red skeleton. So that timer is constantly going on the top of the screen, or the top screen, and then when time runs out, the time you bought is run out, the game freezes, it pauses, and sometimes it looks like it's glitching out a little bit, because I don't know, it's some sort of probably interrupt in the CPU, not like a real clean pause signal that the game is interpreting. I think it's like freezing the CPU as opposed to a game level, application level pause function, if that's maybe that's a little too technical. But yeah, and then you have a grace period of 30 seconds or whatever to coin back up to buy more time, which is what I did. Threw some more quarters in. You saw me kind of grab that my own throwing axe and kind of skedaddle, even though I hadn't defeated that armored knight. So here we are, climbing our way back in stage 14. Yeah, trying to make the best of what's going on here. I think I kind of like that I have the throwing axe here. I think I'd prefer maybe to have the holy water, but this is definitely better than some of the other options. It's been a while since I've seen the boomerang cross. I do kind of like that one too, but and I know some of these attacks aren't actually making damage because of the armor that the armored knight has. But yeah, if you can keep moving forward, the weapon will follow you. Well, that was actually the boomerang axe that the enemy threw, so that wasn't really helping me out much there. It's weird how my weapons hurt them and their weapons hurt me, but not vice versa. But in real life, right? Like, if I hit myself with an axe, it would hurt even if it was my axe, and vice versa. But anyway, that's maybe expecting too much of a game from this era to have that sort of realism baked in. So I think we're coming up on hopefully the end of stage 14 here. We've got a tricky sort of situation with that armored knight up at the top. Trying to sort of throw my axe up there to maybe knock him out in advance, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. So why don't we just get up there and sort of maybe try a little bit more. Like I said, I'm doing a voiceover here, and I'm not exactly remembering what I did because this was a few days ago before I left on this trip. But yeah, I know that not all of those attacks are landing or doing damage. Whoops. That was a boneheaded thing. You fell right on that guy. Now you're back at the beginning of stage 14 with no power-ups. Great job, Charlie. I bet you we die here pretty soon and have to burn another one of our unlimited continues, but that's no problem. So let's make our way back up here. But yeah, I love the PlayChoice-10. Obviously, I love the NES. It was the most formative console that I grew up with. Obviously, I got cut my teeth on the 2600, but it was really my cousins that had the Atari. So anytime I would go over to their place, I would play the heck out of Centipede and Space Invaders and Yar's Revenge and Pitfall, and I loved it. But we never had a 2600 growing up because I was still, kind of young. But when the NES came out, all my friends had it, and I would spend all this time at their house playing it. So, I had to get one, but I had to wait until Christmas to get it, and it wasn't until Christmas of '88 where I finally got one. But Yeah, love the NES, and you've probably, maybe I should have showed it on the intro to this video. I've been an NES collector really since I was a kid. It kind of started when, here we go. We had just earned another extra life through points. And then lost it pretty quickly. So, obviously the kernel or the beginning of my, now NES collection, began with the games that I got as a kid, starting at Christmas '88, and then every birthday, every Christmas, special occasions, maybe sometimes I saved up money, and got a new game. But, when I was a kid, it was not common to, maybe only a couple times a year would you get a new game that you would own. It was far more common to rent cartridge video games for the NES, and then later the Genesis and Super Nintendo and whatever. Back when video rental stores were a thing, like Blockbuster and Hollywood Video and whatever. We had a little mom and pop one in my hometown. So almost every Friday night after school, I'm sure a lot of you had a similar experience. My mom would take me and my brother, or eventually me and both of my brothers, to the video store, and typically we would get a movie for the parents, maybe a movie for the kids, and then almost always a Nintendo game for the weekend, right? And Castlevania, I didn't own Castlevania 1, I owned Castlevania 2, and some other games as well, obviously, but never owned Castlevania 1 until later, but we rented it pretty frequently. And other ones like, Zelda 1 I didn't own for a while, right? And Mario 2 I didn't own. Or RC Pro-Am. These were all games that I rented a ton of. And eventually, that video store, didn't go out of business, but it stopped renting Nintendo games. After the Super Nintendo came out and the Genesis, they only had so much space, right? And people were didn't really care about Nintendo anymore. Most people didn't care about the original Nintendo anymore. And so they liquidated their inventory, and I think they sold off all their games as used games, and they put them in the used tapes bin for $5 a piece, right? And so I got a ton of games for $5, and those that's really when I became a collector. I was buying games to collect them at that point, and it was great because I was a little bit older, I think an older teenager at this point. I had a little bit of pocket money to spend, from my whatever, high school jobs or whatever. And a bunch of NES games. I probably spent maybe $40-50 and bought there we go, there's that another power up, and bought a bunch of NES games. And the best part was these were the same NES games that I had been renting and playing. So these were not just go to GameStop or Funcoland or something and buy a used game from that was somebody else had owned. Yeah, I didn't own these before, but these were the games that I would rent every weekend and play. So I got the Castlevania that I grew up playing. I got and eventually sort of completed it, bought the box and everything separately, because the video store was just selling loose cartridges. I got the Castlevania that I grew up renting, and the Mega Man 1 that I grew up renting, and Metroid, and RC Pro-Am, and Zelda, and all these things. So those were the games that I, literally the copies, literally the cartridges that I played as a kid, renting from the video store. I eventually bought them and got to own them forever, which is great. And then, years go by, and I was slowly, buying games here and there at, garage sales and flea markets, or, there we go. There's the Boomerang cross, or sometimes Funcoland or GameStop. I don't know if any of you remember Funcoland. Much better than GameStop in my opinion, but that's a different story. And then eventually, the collecting bug hit me, and I kind of went nuts, and now I own almost a complete North America set of NES games. I think I'm about a dozen away from a complete set. All the ones that I'm missing are thousands of dollars, right? Like stadium events and Little Samson and all that kind of stuff. I've got some cool ones like Panic Restaurant and DuckTales 2 and whatever, but all the ones that I'm missing are, thousands of dollars, and they're only getting more expensive. So I doubt that I'll ever really, complete a collection. I've got much better things to spend my money on. If I could get them for $50, sure, right, but I'm not going to spend thousands of dollars on something like stadium events. What is that going for? $20,000 now? That's a car, right? But if I found it at a flea market for, $5, you better believe I'd love to have it. But, it's really just world-class track meet, right? So anyway, or is it Athletic World? I always forget which one is which. So here we go. We're coming up to our next boss here, and I get wiped out by the Medusa heads, and we get another continue. So let's go back to the beginning of stage 13 and let these, I want to say hunchbacks, I think their real name is Igor, but these Igors eat me up. I haven't even scrolled the screen yet, and I've lost half my health bar. Great job, Charlie. You're doing awesome. This high level of gameplay is what all of your viewers are here coming to watch, but goodness gracious. Yeah, that was a great way to begin my NES collection, buying out those games at the local mom and pop game store once they liquidated their NES collection. I wish I could go back in time and buy even more, or travel all around to other video stores, going out and buying out their collections, or going and finding that one Funko Land somewhere in the country that had a copy of Stadium Events available for the list price from their pricing sheet of like 99 cents or whatever. Could you believe that? Anyway, so we died again. Yeah, welcome back. Those Igors both despawned off the screen, so whatever. Let's see if we can get back. I forget what the next boss here would be. Is it the Grim Reaper? Maybe it's a pretty major one. Anyway, we're not doing great. We're almost dead on the first screen here of stage 13. So, yeah, love the NES, and so, like I said, I've got almost a complete collection of North American retail releases, including unlicensed games. So I've got a bunch of the unlicensed, like Tengen and Color Dreams and Wisdom Tree and all those terrible games. Tengen Tetris is good, and some of the Tengen games are okay. But I don't have any of for example, the Pinesian games. Some of those are, very not safe, adult-oriented, not safe for work games. And I'm dead. Lost another life, so great. Maybe I should just sort of waste myself here. Maybe, is that what I'm doing? No. I should probably waste myself and just, use a continue. But, yeah, so missing some of those games. But, I've got quite a few complete in box games, too. Probably, I'd have to double check. Something like 200 complete in box games, which I love, right? I don't really love the idea of, how much more do you have to spend for them. It gets pretty crazy, right? Just for the cardboard box and the instructions. But I love the artwork. I love seeing these games on the shelf. I think it's fantastic, and I do play them too, so I'm not just a shelf collector, but so much of my focus for the last several years has been on coin-op arcade machines, so still very much related, and I'm still slowly collecting. There's not much more I can do with the NES without shelling out massive amounts of money that I'm not willing to do. Just be completely financially irresponsible to do that sort of thing. So I've been collecting, original, DMG Game Boy, the gray, black and white Game Boy games. I'm trying to get the one up to appear again. I thought for a second that I had to crouch, but no, that's like the kneeling to get the tornado to appear in Castlevania 2. You have to push up against the wall here to make this one appear. I'm forgetting. There's a bonus up above that I forgot. Yeah, I'm dying again. I'm not doing so well. Oh, yep, right on cue almost. What was I even talking about? I can't even remember. Yeah, so Game Boy games. I've been collecting quite a few Genesis games. Genesis, you can often find the cases pretty easily just because they're plastic, clamshells, so they stood up a lot better than NES or Super NES boxes. For whatever reason, I feel like Super NES boxes just didn't survive as well as NES boxes, or maybe that's just because there were fewer Super Nintendos because Nintendo only had 50% market share instead of 95% market share like they had with the NES. But yeah, I feel like it's harder to find Super Nintendo boxes than it is to find NES boxes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just been my experience. But yeah, I do have some Super Nintendo games. A lot of the heavy hitters. After the NES, we got the Sega Genesis, right? We got it. I got the one of the first releases of the Model 2 Genesis, the smaller one, when Sonic 2 came out. So, Christmas a couple years after we got the NES, we got so this would have been what? Christmas 91, 92 maybe? When Sonic 2 came out, we got the Genesis Model 2 bundle that came with Sonic 2. And a funny story about that is I actually figured out where my parents were hiding the Christmas presents that year, right? So I figured out that they were, I got some wall chicken there, that's good. They were hiding the Christmas presents inside the luggage in the upstairs closet, right? So, our luggage, like suitcases, right? They figured, the kids are never going to look in here, right? So they were hiding our Christmas presents in the luggage, in the suitcases in the upstairs closet. And so I found the Genesis. And, like many kids of my generation, right? Mom and dad both worked. And so, I'd get home from school and have at least an hour or two before my mom would get home from her job, like latchkey kids or whatever. And so I had some safe time, and I would hook up the Genesis and play it. And so I actually beat Sonic 2 before it was officially given to me as a Christmas present. So I had to, feign surprise and act like I was, not expecting this, as opposed to, sorry, I've been playing this for weeks and I already beat the game. But anyway, loved the Genesis. Got, that was, kind of a really easy segue from the NES to the Sega Genesis. And, I had friends with Super Nintendo, and so that was good, They would come over to our place to play Genesis, and we'd go over to their place to play Super Nintendo, so you kind of got the best of both worlds there. And then you'd obviously have those console war arguments on the playground about which system is better or whatever. But so yeah, Genesis is very near and dear to me. I've got obviously a lot more nostalgia for Genesis than Super Nintendo, but obviously I like the Super Nintendo too. I really like 16 bits or less is kind of my preference when it comes to art style and gameplay and whatever. By the time you got to the PlayStation and more 3D stuff, right? For whatever reason, I've always enjoyed 2D gaming a lot more than 3D gaming. My kids, particularly cannot understand that, right? Like, they'll play 2D games, but they really, really much prefer 3D games. And I think it's almost like, for me growing up, I would be confused why my parents, particularly my dad, would watch old black and white movies. I'm like, but we have color now, right? Like, why would you watch these old black and white movies when we've got color TV and color movies now, right? And I didn't understand, right, how to appreciate the classics back then. Obviously I can now, but maybe it's something similar with, 2D games for my generation. We appreciate them like our parents and grandparents appreciated black and white movies. I don't know, maybe there's something to that. Maybe I'm making something out of nothing, but I wonder if there's a similar kind of theme there with, black and white versus color and 2D versus 3D gaming. I think another thing is anything that, especially even now with VR and all the advancements in CGI, and you see all these games that are just incredible, but they're still not excuse me, still not perfect, right? So as much as they're trying to, sorry, my throat got dry there from all the talking, so I had to take a sip of water. But yeah, maybe well, here's where we got smoked last time. So let's see. Oh, I want to get that invincibility. I don't know if that's gonna help me. Oh, it doesn't last long enough. Oh, we got a little power up there. Let's see if we can make it through and make it to the boss. Yeah, the other thing about 2D games is, like I was saying, as much as you try to, recreate reality, it's never going to be perfect. Oh, we got the other, the level 3 power up. It's never going to perfectly, recreate reality, no matter how hard you try. There's always going to be the uncanny valley. And so maybe that, it's almost like a cartoon, right? You want something super realistic or a cartoon and intentionally, right, simplified. All right, so here we are, boss battle at the end of stage 15, and this is, the Grim Reaper, also known as Death, who throws these They're supposed to be sickles, but they look like candy canes, and he just annihilates me, right? So, and now we're back to the beginning of stage 15 with no power-ups. And I think this is where Brandon from, you know, Outrun Arcade, or no, not Outrun, Outworld Arcade on Twitch, which you should definitely go and follow him if you're on Twitch. He's so close to the first monetization tier. Please go do that. I think the Grim Reaper or Death is where he got stuck. So hopefully we can, you know, get past this. We've been playing this for a while. Jeez, it's coming up on an hour. I didn't really want to play this long. Hopefully somebody's still watching out there. Jeez. Yeah, the other thing with like 2D games is, you know, I feel like, you know, you can like fully understand the entire state. Oh, we're already getting smoked here. You can fully understand the state of the game much easier in a 2D game, right? There's very little, if you think about it in terms of state from like a programming or a modeling of the world perspective, the entire state is like there on screen. The state of the world, the state of the game, all at once. You can take that in, you know, with your two eyes, looking at the screen, and you know everything that's going on. It might not help you, you know, play it like right there. It might not help you predict the movement or anything, but at least you know where everything is, what's going on, what's happening. With a 2D game, there's things going on all around you, right? And you have your field of view, and it's obviously not 360, you know, every angle, whatever. So you're constantly having to look around. There's hidden things, not because your you know, objects are obscured, but because you're not looking at them. They're behind you, they're to the side or whatever. And I feel like that requires my brain to have a far more, to work much harder cognitively to model this world, right? That I have limited sensory abilities to perceive, right? Versus like real life, you've got your eyes and your ears and stereo vision and stereo hearing. I feel like it's easier for a human, and maybe I'm completely off base here, easier for a human to model like real reality around them thanks to their senses, right? Their actual senses, than it is for them to model a 3D world based on the limited sensory input from the AV, you know, audio, visual, whatever outputs of the game. So I feel like my brain is working harder to model the world of a 3D game than a 2D game. But I don't know if that makes any sense. If any of you are academics, hey, maybe that's an idea for some sort of, you know, psychology paper or cognitive science paper or something like that, neuroscience paper. You're welcome. Maybe somebody's gonna write a dissertation based on that and get their PhD from some dumb idea that Charlie had on a long play live stream of Castlevania. But anyway, so now we're back. We've got a decent sub-weapon here for the Grim Reaper or Death or whatever he's called in this game. We're sort of walking back this armored knight. We're dodging our Medusa heads. We've got full health. We're going to get that power up. Now we've got two armored knights sort of stacked up on each other. And one of their weapons gets through. I don't think we have an opportunity to regain any health. Let's see if we can avoid losing any more. What happens if these guys get backed up all the way? Oh, not good, Charlie. What happens if they get backed up all the way to the spawn? Did they just die? Did I hit them? Or did they like reach a point where they get sort of killed because the game doesn't want them to be on the same screen as the boss? That's interesting. So here we are. Let me try to, I think if you don't, the boss won't spawn until you get to the middle of the screen or something, or past the middle of the screen. So I'm trying to get all these candles to get whatever I can get. But yeah, we've only got half health. And I instantly get hit by the candy canes. And yeah, I can only take 2 hits, you know, if I've only got half my health. And I instantly get hit by a fireball from the dang dragon head or dinosaur head or whatever. So I don't know, guys. Things are not looking good here, right? Like I decided to make the title of this video, Let's Play Castlevania to Death. And if you haven't gotten the hint already, there's a hidden meaning in that. I don't think we're going to make it past death. So we're going to play Castlevania until death, as in until we reach the boss Death and then can't make it any farther. And I think I just picked up the wrong power up here. So this is not looking good. I'm going to be able to take maybe one more hit here Well, okay, we got some wall chicken, so we're a little bit back. Maybe I can take 3 hits here, or takes 3 hits to knock me out. But I got to contend with all this, and yeah, there we go. Got hit. Guys, this is not looking good. Nope. And one more hit, we're dead, and there we go. So maybe that's the end of this Let's Play live stream. Or it's not even a live stream. This Let's Play long play. This is the end. But wait, there's more. As promised, there was a little bonus that I wanted to show you after the Let's Play, which is, I think this is basically my entire Castlevania console collection. So we'll take a look at each of these. We'll start with the original Castlevania. Obviously, this box is beat up a little bit. This is the original cartridge that I grew up playing that I bought from my local game store when they sold out. But I pieced together the CIB. Yeah, we can see sort of the one screen that we made it to in the game there. And then Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. I know this is an unpopular opinion. I love this game. I love this game. It had those RPG elements. It sort of was the precursor to the Metroidvania games. You know, there was a basic economy to the game, and this is the actual copy that I got, you know, Christmas of '88, I think. It's in shockingly good condition. I think because I cleaned it up, but otherwise it would have been super dusty. You know, this instruction manual has seen better days, and I think at the back we might even find some, continue codes there. It says scores, but why would you record your score for Castlevania 2? It was the continue codes or the passwords, really what you wanted, because it didn't have a battery backup. Castlevania 3 obviously went back to the classic formula of the original Castlevania, got rid of the RPG elements from Castlevania 2. Amazing soundtrack, you know, the best graphics of any NES Castlevania game. Just absolutely phenomenal game, Castlevania 3. And, you know, we've got the 3 original Game Boy games here for Castlevania. The first one, Castlevania Adventure, not a particularly good game. The controls and the speed are just off. Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge, actually pretty good approximation of the Castlevania experience on the Game Boy. And then the third one, Castlevania Legends, sort of a weird one late in the Game Boy's life. And I think it was eventually sort of stripped from the Castlevania canon. Super Castlevania 4, I think technically would you consider this a launch window game for the Super Nintendo? Certainly I think this was still in the first few months after the launch of the Super NES. Amazing graphics, amazing sound, you know, what you expect from Castlevania. Had the ability to whip in all the directions and Mode 7 graphics. And then a weird one here, this is a bit uncommon, Castlevania Dracula X for the Super Nintendo. Not a particularly great game. Castlevania Bloodlines, however, is a fantastic game for the Genesis, the only Castlevania game on the Genesis. Again, this is a complete in-box edition, you know, with the cartridge and the case and the instruction manual. I'll show you that inside in just a little bit. Awesome game, sort of unique, you know, with the Genesis sound chip. And, you know, Castlevania 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, I have CIB as well for the Nintendo platforms. Another game that I absolutely love. This is probably a top 3 console game for me of all time. By far my favorite PlayStation 1 game, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. The real, like, you know, the initial epitome of the Metroidvania genre, along with Super Metroid, which I love as well. I remember playing the heck out of Symphony of the Night. Here's a weird little thing. This is like a little Simon Belmont action figure, kind of. I think this was a pre-order giveaway for the Dracula X Chronicles on like the PSP or something. Unfortunately, the one I have is a broken leg. Here is a Simon Belmont amiibo that I grabbed on a whim a couple of years ago for, you know, Super Smash Brothers. Never took it out. It's just a decoration here. And I mentioned this before. Here's the Castlevania collection, you know, that Konami released for the Switch, you know, maybe, I don't know, 2 years ago. Has all of, you know, the NES games and the Genesis and Super Nintendo and you know, 2 Game Boy games and the, you know, Kid Dracula, which never got released on the NES in the US. And actually, this you know, this box lights up and plays music. I kind of made a mistake here and didn't have the microphone set up for it, so I ran over and grabbed the microphone so you can hear the music that this box plays. And again, this is the, you know, the collector's edition from Limited Run Games. So now I've got my microphone. I'll start the music, and you'll hear the music that this music box plays. If I can get it going. Yeah, there it goes. So it you know, lights up and plays this music. It's a little, you know, it's a tinny little speaker. It's not a great sort of, high fidelity music, but a cool little conversation piece. And this is how I was playing Castlevania. Not tonight. I was playing it off screen on the PlayChoice-10, but when I was on my flight on the Switch. And I also, so this is, my TurboGrafx 16 Mini, and it has, the reason I got it was really to be able to play Rondo of Blood, which was only really released on the PC Engine CD in Japan, never really released in the US. But yeah, there's my, Castlevania console collection. I hope you thought that was cool. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Overtime!